many champions of justice who have addressed our congregation from this very bima in this very sanctuary were the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King and Eleanor Roosevelt. Today, when we read Parashat Shoftim, as we heard from our B'nai Mitzvah, all about justice, we have an opportunity, a rare chance, to learn from another champion of justice of our own time, joining us from Jerusalem, Orly Erez-Likhovski. She graduated from the Faculty of Law at Tel Aviv University. After clerking at the Israeli Supreme Court, she studied for a master's degree in law at Columbia University in New York, focusing on human rights. Since 2004, Orly has been working as an attorney at the Israel Religious Action Center, that is the legal and advocacy wing of the Reform movement in Israel. She was the director of the legal department of Iraq between 2014 and 2021. In this capacity, she led the legal struggle against discrimination on the basis of religious affiliation, gender segregation in the public sphere, and racial incitement. You can go to the website of the Israel Religious Action Center and learn more about all that legal team does under Orly's leadership. Her efforts led to significant legal achievements, such as abolishing gender segregation on public buses, breaking the Orthodox monopoly regarding the funding of salaries for rabbis, disqualifying many, but not all, racist candidates from running for Knesset, and winning the rights of LGBTQ+ couples to adopt children. Since November 2022, Orly is the executive director of the Israel Religious Action Center, and also under her watch and her leadership, the Reform movement in Israel played a key role in the pro-democracy movement and demonstrations which began in 2023 and are continuing to this very day. So Orly, Brucha Haba'ah, thank you for being with us. Please come and teach us your Torah on this Shabbat Shoftim.
Hello everyone, Shabbat Shalom. I'm so happy and moved to be here after this beautiful ceremony. So we are on the Torah portion of Shoftim, as we have heard from the amazing B'nai Mitzvahs. And I want to reiterate one of the important verses of the parasha, which is, you shall set up judges and law enforcement officials for yourself in all your cities, and they shall judge the people with righteous judgment. Justice, justice shall you pursue, that you may live and possess the land God is giving you. And we heard Zoe talk about why justice twice, but I want to talk about the word pursue, because actually the literal translation of the Hebrew Bible is not pursuing justice, but rather chasing justice. That's the word, the translation of the word in Hebrew, tirdof. Lirdof tzedek is to chase justice. And the question is, why chasing justice? You chase something that is running away from you. You chase something that is very hard to grab, and you're chasing something that is very elusive. And the answer is exactly that. The Bible is telling us that because justice is so elusive, because it's hard to achieve justice, we must never give up our quest to do so. And this is what we have been doing for many, many years at the Israel Religious Action Center. I am a lawyer by training. I went to study law because, quite simply, I wanted to pursue or chase justice. At the Israel Religious Action Center, I have found my home, a place where I can raise a Jewish voice for justice, where I can pursue justice based on both Jewish tradition and democratic values. I have been working at the Israel Religious Action Center for the past 20 years, promoting a more just, equal, and pluralistic Israeli society which respects the rights of all its citizens, regardless of their race, religion, and gender. But before talking about the current, very challenging moment, I want to highlight some of our key accomplishments and the positive transformations they have brought about in Israeli society. Our fight for equality to the liberal streams of Judaism in Israel brought about the beginning of the dismantling of the Orthodox monopoly, demonstrating that there are multiple ways to express Jewish identity in the Jewish state. Thanks to our legal struggle, Reform conversions are now recognized. Some of our congregations and rabbis now receive public funding. Our pluralistic Jewish educational programs are supported by the state. We are still fighting for an equal and respectable place at the Western Wall for all Jews. Our relentless campaign against exclusion of women and gender segregation in the public sphere has yielded significant victories for women's rights in Israel. Bus drivers can no longer send women to the back of the bus. Flight attendants on flights to and from Israel are not allowed to ask women to change seats to accommodate demands of ultra-Orthodox passengers who refuse to sit next to women. Burial societies are no longer allowed to prevent women from eulogizing their loved ones or to force gender segregation on the grieving family. Our campaign against the silencing of women's voices achieved a landmark victory when an ultra-Orthodox radio station that refused to allow women to be heard on air was ordered to pay 1 million shekels in damages. We unequivocally declare that racism is not our Judaism. Our persistent legal efforts in our fight against racism have yielded significant results. Orthodox leaders and rabbis who incite to racism now face criminal and disciplinary charges. We have convinced the Supreme Court to disqualify several extreme racist candidates from running for Israel's parliament. And our Racism Crisis Center offers free legal aid to those who have experienced racial discrimination. For instance, we successfully contested a taxi app service, which is Israel's Uber, that offered a cab service with Jewish cab drivers only. As a result of our class action suit, this service ceased to exist, and the company is going to compensate 2,000 Palestinian cab drivers from East Jerusalem. We are also committed to advocating for the LGBTQ community, fighting discrimination and demanding equality. One of our recent victories was convincing the Supreme Court to abolish the discriminatory practice of denying gay couples the right to adopt babies in Israel. Another recent victory is our successful challenge of a refusal of a Jerusalem museum due to demands from ultra-Orthodox rabbis to host an LGBTQ event. We took the case to court and the event was held as planned. Our Legal Aid Centers for New Immigrants provides essential assistance to hundreds of new immigrants each year, and for the past 2 years, a significant number of people who arrived from Ukraine and Russia. We also support dozens of foreign women who are married to Israeli men but had to escape the marriage because of domestic violence. We're helping them obtain Israeli citizenship and prevent their deportation. As a human rights lawyer, I'm used to struggles in the courts, in the Israeli parliament, in the streets. But the past 20 months have been the most challenging period I have ever experienced. In December of 2022, the most extreme Israeli government came into power, a government whose values stand in stark contrast to our Jewish values of equality and pluralism. In the last 20 months, we Israelis have been on an unrelenting roller coaster of despair and hope. 3 short stories that I would now like to share with you will perhaps give you a taste of what we've been going through. The first story takes place in Jerusalem in the summer of 2023. It was the height of what has been known as the judicial coup, the government's attempt to erode Israel's already very fragile democracy through a series of laws that would have given the government absolute power, posing a direct threat to the delicate checks and balances of our system. In response, the Israeli public mobilized in an unprecedented display of civic engagement, protesting every Shabbat for 40 weeks. The Israeli reform movement was at the forefront of the pro-democracy protests, rallying under our slogan, "Defending Democracy in the name of Judaism," because we emphasized that what the government meant to do was not only anti-democratic, it was also incompatible with our Jewish values. In July of 2023, the Knesset passed one of the controversial laws, a law which sought to prevent our Supreme Court from intervening in unreasonable government decisions. Alongside tens of thousands of Israelis, I participated in a protest near the Israeli parliament against this law. It was a hot summer day, and we protested for hours, only to learn in the afternoon that the law we were protesting against had been approved. The experience was both difficult and disheartening. As the protest concluded and I prepared to depart, two Haredi men who noticed my Reform t-shirt approached me and asked me about Reform Judaism. In our conversation, which lasted for an hour, we spoke about the judicial coup, about Israeli democracy, about Reform Judaism. While we did not agree, we were able to engage in a respectful dialogue, empathize with each other's pain, and listen to each other's perspectives. It was a hopeful ending of a tough day in a challenging period. And then came October 7th, and the horrific atrocities that Hamas committed that day. The Israeli Reform Movement acted swiftly in response to the horrors. Through our humanitarian relief fund, Keren Bekavod, we mobilized dozens of volunteers and distributed essential supplies to soldiers and displaced families. Our rabbis provided pastoral care, offering comfort and solace to those in deep need. From the outset, we stood firmly with the families of the hostages, emphasizing that there is no greater commandment than the redemption of captives. This is when the second story takes place in Tel Aviv in October of 2023. A few weeks after October 7th, we began holding Havdalah ceremonies every Shabbat in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, calling for the release of the hostages. One of the early ceremonies took place on Kaplan Street in Tel Aviv. It was a deeply moving experience where we sang a few songs, including Lu Yehi, Naomi Shemer's Hebrew adaptation of the Beatles' Let It Be. At the precise moment when we sang the lyric, "What is that sound I hear? A shofar call, and a beating drums," a siren blared. We immediately sought shelter, and after about 10 minutes we returned to the street to resume the Havdalah with the psalm Shir Lama'alot, a prayer for God's protection. It was a surreal experience in an extraordinary difficult reality, blending horror and hope. As often occurs during times of heightened security tension, the aftermath of October 7th brought a significant surge in racism directed at Palestinian citizens of Israel. Our Racism Crisis Center closely monitored these incidents and expressions of hate, and we pressed law enforcement authorities to take action. In a period marked by growing extremism and a deepening sense of hopelessness among many Israelis, it became crucial to resist the pull of these divisive voices and to offer an alternative vision, one rooted in tolerance, equality, and justice. This is why, over the past 11 months, we have organized a series of events dedicated to promoting a shared society between Jews and Arabs. And this brings me to the last and final story, which takes place in Haifa in March of 2024. On the International Day Against Racism, we hosted a Shared Society conference at the Leobeck School in Haifa. The event was designed to provide our congregations with practical programs and tools to foster a shared society between Jews and Arabs inside Israel. The conference featured Reform rabbis from our congregations, as well as Jewish and Arab leaders, activists, and academics. However, the most moving moment came when 4 young students, 2 Jews and 2 Arabs, 2 boys and 2 girls, performed the song "There Must Be Another Way," originally sung by a Jewish and Israeli Arab duo at the 2009 Eurovision Song Contest. And the song includes the following lines: "When I cry for both of us. My pain has no name. We have gone such a long road together, hand in hand. There will come a day when all the fear will disappear. We are only waiting for the day after. There must be another way." The last few weeks have been extremely difficult. The Israeli government refused to agree to a deal to release the hostages, and this week we were devastated to learn about the murder of 6 hostages by Hamas, hostages which we believe could have been saved had Israel agreed to the deal. This week, the Israeli public flooded the streets in numbers we have not seen since the war began, protesting the abandonment of the hostages by the government and demanding to bring them back as the #1 priority. We are still in the midst of a profound crisis. As of today, 101 hostages are still held by Hamas in Gaza. Tens of thousands of Israelis remain displaced from their homes, and the war continues to claim innocent lives on both sides. Meanwhile, the Israeli government is attempting to revive its undemocratic judicial coup, recklessly exacerbating tensions within Israeli society. Simultaneously, Jews all over the world are now experiencing an unprecedented wave of anti-Semitism that none of us would have imagined could happen in the 21st century. But we know that we shall overcome this challenging moment, drawing strength from the remarkable resilience of the Israeli people and the support of liberal Jews worldwide. Our vision of a democratic Israel, a homeland for all Jews that treats all its citizens with dignity and equality, is more crucial now than ever. And one way that you can help us and support us is to join Artsa Canada, the Zionist arm here of the Reform Movement, which is very, very dramatic, especially at this time. This week we mark the beginning of the month of Elul, the month when we begin the process of atonement up until Yom Kippur. This time of year reminds us that we always have a chance to right wrongs and embrace a brighter future. We will continue to fight for a just Israel, and we will continue to hope for better days of peace and tranquility. As the Israeli anthem says, Od lo avda tikvatenu, our hope is not yet lost. There must be another way, a way of pursuing justice, and we will continue to do whatever we can to get there. Thank you and Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.